Hey all, and welcome to another edition of the Tongue Tie Off podcast, or vodcast if you're watching us. My name's Cody Winnell, or Codes. That's Jason Bonington, or
J Bon, Bonners, Bono. Yeah, there's plenty.
the Guru, the cartographer.
Marsole, Brick Facing.
Oh.
There's been a few monikers used over the journey.
Yes, there has. J-Bon, did you win a Sale of the Century episode or a Temptation episode?
Well, it was Temptation.
Yep.
Was the title of the show, but it was one of those rebrandings.
Same show.
Yeah.
I just was wondering if it was the Sale era or the Temptation. It was the Temptation era.
It was a Temptation era.
Did they still have the famous faces?
Well, that's where I won all the cash.
Oh, really?
So my late beautiful mother, Janice Marie Bonington. Jan was an unusually large fan of Megan Gale.
Right.
And I mentioned it on the show. I said, I'm going to choose Megan Gale because my mum, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what it was. I ended up with a little over 8,000. And I got about 5 or 6 out of that. But that was night 2, and it precluded me from going on to night 3. But I tell you what, at that time in my life, the $8,000 meant a little bit more than the ego. I just wanted to win one night. And when I got the $8,000, that was like $2.5 million for me at the time.
That's incredible. It's an incredible story that I've seen you in action in the quizzes and the trivia. You're very, very good at it. And you were a carryover champion on Temptation. Did you get to play the pokies or was it the cash card? Remember they used to have if you were ahead, you had to pay $15 and you either spun the little poker machine or you played the cash card and got to choose.
No, it was like a ladder.
Oh, was it?
I think.
Yeah, right.
I can't remember that bit. I didn't do well at that.
Or the vault. Was it the vault? It might have been the vault.
Vault. And I got I love pens.
Yep.
And I love
you do.
Them.
And you're a big fan of that.
Kilometrico that I love. I don't have it anymore because I lose things, but it was a beautiful Waterman pen. But back in the day, the sale days, you used to get a bit of gold.
Yeah, or a diamond pendant. Yeah, that was the Sale of the Century.
But I've only got Phillips and Lavinia Nixon, and
right, Ed. And
in the first game, I produced some awful answers early. One of them was about I can't remember exactly, but cricketing brothers with a name like a church.
Yep.
I said I didn't say chapel, but I think I hit the buzzer in the first game. 85. There were 2 women, middle-aged women, either side of me, and they were looking at me like, "This bloke's he must be carried off," because I think I hit about 80%, and I answered enough right to win, which was the main thing.
So you were hitting that button like I hit the space bar. Is that a fair?
Yes. Yeah.
Gotcha. Now, we've got Temptation and game shows aside. We've got a pretty cool show ahead, J-Bomb. We're going to be joined shortly by Brittany Graham, courtesy of Sky Racing. We've got our first guest on the Tongue Tie Off podcast. We've got Brittany in to talk about the big Constellations carnival that's happening up in Queensland at the moment, Jace, and also just to chat about some other things. She's a great friend of ours and a friend of the show and a terrific harness racing
absolutely a jet.
ambassador.
Never been one better. And I'm not just talking about harness racing. I think we're both big fans of assessing the broadcast of all sports.
Absolutely.
I don't think there's anybody better for any sport.
No, and we worked with Brittany along, quite a lot over the journey, but I go back to ID18 and her performance at ID18 and just, she's so knowledgeable. She's such a professional, so articulate and gives all the fans, just my role was sort of as a producer sort of thing that night, running around, teeing up different interviews, this, that, and the other. And seeing the way she engaged with fans who were, coming up to her, asking her questions, we've often said that's what makes harness racing really cool. But without people like Brittany actually willing to engage with all of the punters and give them their time, we wouldn't be able to say it.
Well, I'm talking about her while she's not here. She will be here in a moment. But as great a presenter as she is, Brittany and I know each other very, very well. Very, very, very well. and she is quite a shy person. So it's not. I think the presentation aspect is natural for her, but that other aspect, just tells you what a giving, generous, benevolent person she is, because she's quite a shy person. And the difference between my best and worst might be that the difference between her best and worst is infinitesimal. Like she just such a professional and has that gift that we don't have. I still reckon you'll end up being a trainer driver when you're in your 60s. So you'll move.
I do. I look, honestly, it's on my list. I've got to do it at some point. I'd be hopeless at it, but I've got to have a try.
Britt's ability, or Brittany, not Britt, Brittany's ability to understand the game inside out. And I would nearly say, I would say my favourite moment on air of all time was revealing to her that Majestic Harry, I think it was, had qualified for the Inter-Dominion final, and she broke down in tears.
I remember that. It was incredible viewing. It was incredible viewing. And so we're looking forward to having Britt up shortly. She will join us. Before Britt joins us, though, J-Bond, let's look back at last week. And it was a bit of a horror show, wasn't it? Like,
bit of a horror show.
I think my collect for the game plan returns was 0, and yours might have been similar. And that happens sometimes. You get your wipeouts. And as I said to someone on the tweet, your only option really is to just pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and get back on the horse. Like that time when you fell off the horse, James.
Yeah.
Up in Mildura. Was it Mildura? Yeah.
It was Buster Brady, and I threw back to the studio. That's
another great little bit of vision as we reminisce.
And we'll keep it going, Jason! And then going, we might throw it back to the studio now, and poor old Nikita Ross
Kiba
could not collect herself for the remainder of the evening.
She couldn't. She was flustered.
Yeah, look, I think anybody who's punted for a long period of time, I don't know why. It's one of those, there are things with no rhyme or reason, quantum mechanics to go in punting. But it does seem to happen that when, after about 3 races or 4 races, nothing's going right, you do have a tacit awareness, don't you? Like, this is all going to be a shit show. This is not going to straighten out, and it didn't straighten out. And then you have other nights where everything seems to go right, as we've had already in earlier weeks.
You got to take the good.
On the podcast, but
got to take the good with the bad.
Awful.
Yeah. And this will be tough then, because we now have to do the votes, and I suspect we're giving votes through gritted teeth, as these people probably helped actually bring our game plans undone. But of course, that's all part of it. So you don't bemoan anyone getting success, Jace.
You want me to go first?
Yeah. Who'd you give your 1 vote to?
My 1 vote went to Michelle White.
Yep.
And I felt a little bit bad, because I tweeted about the fact that No Sweets for You hadn't led, and yada, 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 and this and that and the other. And inadvertently probably let the mad men and the mad women come out of their shells and talk about the change of driver. But the truth is, and I could have gone further and I didn't, but I looked through the stats when this horse hadn't been driven by Michelle, and it still did indicate to me that the punters were right. They did have a go, and it did lead and win. But I think Michelle's just done a wonderful job of this. There was, I reckon, week 1 or 2 of the TTO podcast, I was going to black book it. It's not like it wasn't going well.
No.
I didn't envisage it leading, but I did text you before the race and I said, first leg of the quaddy, I hate this being the first leg of the quaddy, because I can see something going wrong, and it did. So
I'm just going to stick my hand up. I just reckon I underrated it myself. It's been going well, as you say. It has been going very well. No, I just didn't think it was. The money was there though, so there was a clue, I suppose.
I'm going to give 2 votes to. This was hard, but 2 votes to Donna Castles.
Mm-hmm.
Could have decided to get involved. There was a bit going on early. There was Jasper broke up and then got back into stride. Could have tried to go forward, but I just think it was a measured drive. And I'll tell you what, Berries and Cherries is just a most lovable horse.
Yeah.
And Donna has handled it her so very, very well. So 2 votes there.
She's done a great job.
I'm going against script, or in opposition to previous weeks, and I'm going to give my great mate and the big dog. She won't want to be called the big dog. Emma Stewart. 3 votes.
3 votes for Emma. Had the 4 wins, so thoroughly deserved. I've gone same trifecta in different order. So we've got a box trifecta situation. I gave 1 vote.
Got 1 for Emma.
I gave 1 to Emma, which is, it's hard to do, but again, we balance up that expectations. And honestly, let's be honest, there's not a huge amount of science in these votes. That it's just you and I going off gut feel. 1 to Emma. She did a great job with the 4 winners. Yeah, Emma is going to get lots of chances to rack up votes right throughout the program. 2 to Donna Castles, who I don't think will get as many opportunities to get the votes for the Fabergé egg or whatever it is that we're giving away. Her job that she's done with berries and cherries, you nailed it. She's done a great job. And I gave 3 to Michelle White because No Sweets for You has been going so consistently well for a while, and it was a thoroughly deserved win. And there was money for it, so I hope they were able to have a nice little wager as well. And I don't know. Maybe that's why Michelle didn't drive it. Maybe she was keen to have a good go on the bet because, of course, as the trainer, you're allowed to have a bet, Jace. But the moment you hop on, you're not allowed to have a bet. So hopefully they got a piece of the big $16 or whatever it was that was available early doors. It started $8 and was underrated because people like me said it wouldn't win, and it showed. It proved me wrong. And so well done, Michelle, and the team there, and Craig, and well done with No Sweets.
We'll get that leaderboard up next week for sure.
Well, the voice in the sky, the producer Jordan, has suggested that what we could do, J-Bon, is put all the votes away, unless someone has been keeping the stats up to this point, and actually do a little Brownlow style podcast at some point.
I don't mind that.
You could maybe start it off with, do the count to some degree, and then
We've
reveal.
Played our own votes for a number of weeks in the last.
Yeah, actually, that's not a bad idea. Put them. Yeah. So maybe that's something we'll look at. Black Booker. Did you find one? All right. Well, I'm going to find one here, an interesting one, Jace. A horse called Business Class. Business Class. For the very informed trainer Michael Gadsden, and the very informed driver James Herbertson. And I'm a big Back to the Future fan, and I've just got a feeling that I'm going to mention those 2 guys being in good form later on. And in fact, I'm also a Back to the Future fan. I reckon there'll be a reference to Back to the Future that I'll make a little bit later on as well, almost out of nowhere.
You're amazing. Will you
Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens.
So we'll be going head to head.
Oh, hang on.
The form preview later on when you make all those references.
Well, who could it possibly be then?
I will make a reference to the fact that we're going head to head.
Right.
Dalara's Shadow.
Oh, yes.
They're in the same. And I may have been a touch cheeky on this occasion because there were probably, I don't know, 2 or 3. Business Class was one of them that were in the mix.
Yep.
But obviously I can see the Dalara's Shadows drawn nicely for this event on Saturday night. And yes. Yeah, no, I reckon I'll reference this as well later. But I looked at that race last start and I thought Dalara's Shadow, if drawn better, would be a winning hope.
Yep.
The critical key will be, can they hunt out and find a prominent positive position from the pole marking draw? But we'll be going head to head. I've got the better draw, but you've got a very talented horse in Business Class, and I reckon in the pod quad we might include both of them and maybe a few others, Coach.
Making some big bold predictions. If we don't follow through on this, we're going to look silly. So let's see if our minds, Jace, can just.
They call me Punxsutawney Bon as well. That was the other day.
Oh yeah, Punxsutawney. I saw the stage show on that one recently, Jace. That was quite good. The Groundhog Day stage show in there in town. Stage show. Musical.
I went and saw the stage show. So I went to the theatre with Marty and I saw the stage. So
that is a John Michael Howson. That is a dead ringer for John Michael Howson, right there. Former 3AW
who was the
legendary host.
You don't know.
Not sure.
No.
He was very good, but I can't remember his name. Now, J-Bon, our guest, Brittany Graham is about I'm told now, about 8 minutes away because she's just sorting her computer out, which gives us a chance, J-Bon, to maybe just touch on whatever, because we haven't actually planned to sort of necessarily go into any great discussions. Is there anything you wanted to raise this week? Any sort of, we went breezing with Bond last week, which I think was good. Again, what it did do is it fired up some discussion. Maybe this is where we could go. There was some, I threw out on Facebook. We've now got the Facebook page up, and we got a lot of nice responses from the industry, Jace, about launching the Pace Setters website and project, which was nice.
Look, I think it was very well played on your behalf to get in the Facebook route. Obviously, there was a long period of time where you felt like all of racing lived on Twitter, but I guess they're two different cohorts. And I mean, we want to reach enthusiasts, punters of all kinds. The industry, though, is really critical, and I'm not part of that group. But you sent me a couple of messages, Michael Bellman, and a couple of others, and it warms the cockles of your heart. Particularly because we're not necessarily considering it in this light, but we aren't stopping the fight. That's the reason. The biggest reason we're doing this is because we want to be on the front lines and fighting, because it is right now a little bit Braveheart. The army on the other side feels bigger than ours, but we can't stop fighting. And I did see that maybe, I haven't seen the form comment or the prices for Saturday night. Either might pop up tomorrow, but I just feel like we can't let anything fall away at this point. We need to keep charging forward. And you know what? If you keep charging forward, anything's possible. And that's what we're trying to do. And it was very, very humbling to know that the industry is behind us, because we are, we're doing this with our own time, but we're so passionate about it. We couldn't stop if we wanted to now.
No, well, of course not. And that's why we're starting it. You're spot on. It's who knows what this can grow into? We don't know, but we're doing it because, as you say, we love it. And I think since both of us stepped away, we were always probably going to go down this path eventually, weren't we? We talked about it and said that the time will come and the time will be right. But I'm with you. There's a view that some have, I think, Jace, that harness racing can't grow, and therefore it needs to just dig in, hold on to what it's got to the best that it can, and see where it lands, and just try and dig in and hold on and hold that line. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it for a second, because I'm not ancient. I can't say I'm young anymore, but you and I aren't ancient, right? And we were won over into the sport. And I'll tell you this point too. Have a look at some of these top drivers and trainers we've got coming through the ranks, right? Who are very young participants, and they're invested. They've had a crack, right? As if we can't still attract young people to the game, as if we can't attract young punters, young participants, young breeders. It's not easy, but it's bloody well not impossible. And you can never, in my opinion, give up on growth opportunity. And I don't care what people say. That is absolutely a fact. And I know the sport can grow, because you and I have played roles where we've seen that it can grow, especially among 18 to 35-year-olds. Jace.
I've got to feed this little cavoodle in a moment before Brittany arrives, but I've got a few things to say about this. One, I wanted to run a competition at one point and give a prize out. I was at HRV years ago for people to write in what they love about the sport, because there's too much talking down. There is nothing wrong. Can we make it better? Yes, of course. There's nothing wrong with harness racing. We fell in love with it. It's just that not enough people are exposed to it. And then those that are exposed don't understand it, which is what we've tried to do all the way. And maybe we're going to be more successful. I'm hoping we'll be more successful than we ever were inside the four walls, attacking it from the outside. And I'm as passionate now as I've ever been about the trots. So that's number one. Number two, that philosophy of holding ground is not just now. That's been going on too long, and that's the reason why we haven't in an attempt to hold ground, we've kept on yielding ground. You've got to be aggressive. You've got to attack. And that's what I spoke about last week. You've got to innovate. You've got to be talkable. You've got to have people, you've got to have talkability. People have got to be discussing the game, the great horses, the great drivers. Not enough people know who Greg Sugars is. Not enough people know who Nathan Dawson, like, name them. Luke McCarthy, whoever. They don't know them well enough, and they don't know the horses well enough. And we need to push them more than us. We need to push them out, because that's where the talkability comes from. Rivalry.
100%.
How good is Leap to Fame compared to the greats of recent times? And I agree with you. We can grow, but the attitude has to be in that direction. We have to have a desire to grow, because if you keep on receding, eventually you find you've got no land left, and plenty of world war battle or war battles taught us that you can't keep receding. So hopefully that's not the mindset.
And sometimes, you mentioned the war reference, sometimes it's not necessarily the army that spends the most money, J-Bon. It's sometimes the army that is the most creative when it comes to strategy. And you don't have to necessarily spend tons of money, as we talked about last week. You can still be creative. You can still be smart about and achieve growth all sorts of different ways. The sport's pretty good as we see it now, as it is at the moment. It's not broken. How can we, it's not broken, I mean, from a punting product and a product that you can sell. Of course, we'd love more prize money. I think that would help. It never hinders, does it? But there are so many things that you could do right now, as we talked about, which could put the building blocks in place for a really strong foundation going forward.
Just before we get to Brittany, you're going to go to feed the convertible. He's going to be very upset. One thing I've really become very interested in over the last 6 months, I don't know how much you know about this, but baseball was the national game in America forever. The NFL took over. Now, the NFL did that through broadcast. But what's amazing to me, I'm not a huge fan of the NFL. I'm going to try next season to get into it. There's not a lot of action on the ground, but you know what it is? An amazingly intellectual, tactical sport.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think it would be the everyman sport. I know there's a lot of action, hard hits and wild, crazy action when they're out there, but they're not out there that long. And I reckon I still believe if we can drive down this path where we teach people how satisfying tactically, strategically it is to use your mind to work out the puzzle, and we'll discuss all the races for Saturday night. We might not work them all out, but even last week when everything went wrong, it's still a pleasurable activity to try and work out the puzzle.
Of course it is.
People into that would be good stuff.
100%. You go feed that dog. Be back shortly. And here she is, as promised, Brittany Graham joining us, first guest on the Tongue Tie Off podcast with pacesetters.au. Hey, Britt.
Hey, team. Great to be on board. Long-time listener, first-time attendee. So feeling very privileged right now.
I love it. And
we're the ones feeling privileged up the coach.
My oath we are. We were mentioning earlier, Britt, before you came on, we were just talking about our opinion of you as a passionate broadcaster, a participant, but most importantly, just as an ambassador, an ambassador of the great game.
Well, I think anybody who knows me, and you both know me through our previous work endeavours, is that I'm a complete harness racing nerd. So as soon as you offered me the opportunity, I absolutely jumped at it. So really excited to be on board.
I feel like I've been marginalised through our previous work endeavours. Bloody hell. No, we said some lovely things, Brittany, and you're just, well, I've said all the nice things already. I'll say them again. You are just an amazing ambassador. I don't think there's anybody in any sport broadcasting role that does a better job than you, but it does help when you eat, sleep, live and breathe the sport, and it means so much to you. I'd love to see you broadcast. We spoke about NFL earlier. I reckon you could jump in and do the footy if you wanted to. But, you just love the game, and everyone loves you, not only because of what a great broadcaster you are, but because they know that you're at the coalface as well. So you know what it means more than anybody else in broadcasting. I think in harness racing, you know what it means when somebody goes out there, on Saturday night at Albion Park and they get a big win, you feels it, and I know you feels it because I spoke earlier about you breaking down in tears when Majestic Harry had made the Inter-Dominion Grand Final and almost had to pick you up. And that's what it means when you do win a big race, or you're even involved in big races. It's pretty incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I feel in a very privileged position myself to be able to do what I do, and I get to talk about something that I love, and it makes it an awful lot easier with the late nights and the long hours that you put in trying to perfect what you do when you're actually really passionate about it. Actually went to the hairdresser the other day and I was working while I was there, and they said, oh no, the time when you go to the hairdresser is when you're meant to, relax and enjoy the experience. And I said, yes, I am relaxing and enjoying the experience, watching my tab app. Like that's literally what I do for enjoyment. I really probably do need a hobby though. That mightn't hurt.
Coach, do you reckon she was just avoiding that really awkward idle chit chat you have to have in your head?
No, but I wanted to say this, Britt. I was mentioning 2018 and ID18 when you were there for Harness Racing Victoria for, of course, what was a fantastic carnival. And one of my takeaways was the fans that were coming up to you and engaging in chat. And I made the point that, you were busy, you were flat out, you were broadcasting, but you still had so much time for harness fans. And I think that's something that's pretty special about our game is, people can feel quite connected to those they see on the screen, those they see out there on the track. And I think you do that very well, I think. And I know that you see that as, a really important role for everyone to play in the industry.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, and I think that there's no doubting or hiding the fact that we're trying to not only nurture the fans that we currently do have and that have been lucky enough to experience the sport and love it like we do, but when we get those opportunities to talk to people, tell them stories, engage with them, have a common interest with them, I think it's really important. So, it's interesting because me moving into this side of the business, and anybody in the media probably comes across as a really outgoing and flamboyant person and, a real people person. Well, surprisingly, for those who probably know me a little better, I'm not necessarily that in my everyday life. Like, I'm a bit of an introvert. I like my people. I like staying at home on the farm. So in those situations, it can sometimes be a little bit uncomfortable for me because, maybe it doesn't come naturally to me in that respect. But yeah, if somebody talks to me about racing, I'll talk to them all day long.
I've already tipped 1 minute, Coach.
Yeah. Bond did mention that earlier.
I was just discussing that it isn't your natural demeanour. It's like I'm a bit of an oversized personality, but you're quite a shy person.
Yeah, I am, which is an interesting vocation for me to choose to be in this. But whenever you get an opportunity to work in an industry like this and get to tell the stories, and like I'm that passionate about this sport that I want to tell everybody about it. It's really one of very few outlets to do that. So I get as frustrated as anyone on Melbourne Cup Day when people want to be negative about the sport. Well, if you're going to get frustrated, you probably have to do something about it. And this is my way of doing something about it and trying to, promote the good stories. So.
Love that.
Love it. I love it. I love the enthusiasm, love the passion. And we love that you're our first guest. Britt, we hope we're going to have other guests as we work our way through this little project.
We've got to be a bit more positive.
Well, it's taken us 6 weeks or 7 weeks to get one guest, Jace. But let's take Britt's here.
And now we've got Brittany Graham. The others will.
Yeah, exactly. We wanted to start right at the top, Britt. So anyway, let's talk about the Queensland Carnival at the moment. It's a special carnival. Must be a great time of year to be up there because it's not as freezing cold. Though, funnily enough, Jabon and I are wearing. He's got a muscle shirt there, and I'm wearing a t-shirt. You appear to be wearing a jumper, so this doesn't make any sense.
I was told by a special someone that I should dress up a little bit more with Brittany coming. I knew she'd be wearing it.
But it's a lovely time of the year to be away from Victoria, I would have thought, weather-wise. But the racing up there has just been absolutely first rate the last few weeks, and I think really well promoted.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's actually unseasonably cold here the last few days, and my unseasonably cold and yours is probably a little different, but I don't cop the cold too well at all. So, yes, I'm more than rugged up, but I can understand why people would want to come here to Queensland for this time of year, not only for the weather, but I think the horses enjoy it. I think horses that are probably in those cold, wet, windy days in Victoria will get a little bit of a new lease on life when they come up here. But no, it is a great carnival. And I'd say we're probably, without knowing for sure, maybe the fourth or fifth year that they've sort of reimagined this carnival, maybe a little less than that, because it was during COVID that they decided to really change the game a little bit. And Queensland's always had a winter carnival. It's not as though it's something super new. They used to have the Queensland Pacing Championships and the Gold Coast Cup and all those sort of races. So there were still races on of note. But I think the changing calendar and really opening up this winter period where, let's be honest, probably a few of the other states don't want to have their feature races there. It makes sense for everyone to have a destination to go to. Racing Queensland have done a super job, not only in what they had already, but just wanting to push the boundaries, try something different. The first year, the Rising Sun was a new race, and that was something really new and exciting. Three-year-olds taking on 4-year-olds. We haven't seen that before. And then there looked to be that niche for another good mares race, and they included the Golden Girl alongside the Queen of the Pacific and the QE2 Miler. And now this Proto Star is, again, if you've got a good horse, whether it be a young horse, an old horse, a pacer, a trotter, in between, you can go to Queensland. And I think it allows people, if they do have a good horse and maybe a nice horse, to take 2 or 3, and it's much more likely for people to want to travel under those circumstances. So, and the money's not too shabby either, let's be honest. Like, it's really, really hot prize money. So it's a great combination. They're trying to do things off track as well, to make it more of a carnival atmosphere. And yeah, I've got nothing but praise for and I'm very, very biased, but I also have nothing but praise for Queensland. I think they're doing a great job.
Well said.
Biased towards Queensland, apparently, Coach.
Apparently. J-Bond.
That could be a little clip. I just quickly want to, before we go in, because you and I, Coach, aren't going to be able to give the winners, I don't think, Saturday night, so we'll rely on Brittany. But I did want to mention, segue into what you spoke about with the carnival, because it's one thing that harness racing was always very well known for, Inter-Dominions and bringing people together, because the social aspect of the sport, and this is the thing, it doesn't have to just be the participants. Fans can then come in and enjoy the events that might be put on. And there's not enough of it going around anymore. I've got FOMO. I don't want to hear too much good stuff. But has it got that carnival atmosphere? Because we know that Victorians in particular down here, New Zealanders in the past, right around Australia, people want to go there not only for the nice weather, and let me guarantee you the worst weather ever has been when I've been there. So but if you've got that carnival atmosphere where everyone's just having an amazing time, and they're connecting, and everyone's connecting a little bit, because there's not enough of it, I don't think, in harness racing Australasia-wide as there should be, and certainly not as much as there used to be, Brittany.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And Racing Queensland and Albion Park and Redcliffe have all worked really hard to try and give people opportunities to socialise, because it's fair to say anyone in racing would know that the opportunities for people to socialise outside of the races are very few. So they're really doing their best. I think there's always challenges, and probably the challenge with this carnival is it is one that goes for a little while. If you include, say, going right back to the patron's purse, it's 6 or 7 weeks. So if people want to be here for that whole time, it's challenging to be away from their own stable and the like. But when you get to this point in the carnival where, there's only 10 days or so left, people are starting to get together, and we don't have a training centre in Queensland, which is disappointing. What's Bono doing? He's leaving us, Cody.
He does this occasionally.
I just seen low battery, and if this goes down while we're having this chat, the whole thing.
Well, I'll continue on. But,
you keep going, Britt. While Jason saves the recording of the program. And I told you earlier why we put him in charge of the technical stuff. I'll never know, but that's all right. He's picked up on it.
But yeah, in terms of people getting together, because we don't have a training facility here in Queensland, people have to rely on other trainers to house them, and gives an opportunity to create relationships. And yeah, they've done a really good job in that carnival atmosphere. It is a challenge because goes for quite a long time, but also I think one thing about Queensland that a lot of people have thought is a negative is the lack of training tracks or tracks in general. But I often see it as a positive, because Redcliffe, Albion Park and Marburg are all within about an hour of each other, so to speak. And that means that everybody who's here for the carnival is basically staying within an hour of each other. It's not as if, you've got people from Bathurst and Menangle and down at Goulburn trying to get together for experiences and barrier draws and things like that. Most people are within an hour of each other, and therefore it gives them the opportunity to maybe catch up once or twice. But no, they've done a good job. Even little things like merch at the track, you see everybody getting around with their Queensland Constellations hoodies on, or they're trying to really give, and I see them all year round now, hats and hoodies, and that people come to Queensland and take away with them, and Leap to Fame hats and that's a whole nother story. But I think they're doing everything pretty spot on, and everything costs money, but hopefully they get to see the rewards of that, and I think they are.
We talk about staying prominent, and that's how you do that, isn't it, Britt and Jace? That's what it's all about.
Again. Yeah.
Well, but that's,
make on the screen.
Merch, etc. costs a bit of money. You don't necessarily make your money back on that sort of thing with your sales. If you do, that's fantastic. But it's the brand recognition. It's people wandering around with the hats. It's people saying, "What's that mean?" Oh, here's what it means. They go and watch the race or attend the track, and they fall in love with the game. And we've made the point earlier, Britt, before you've joined us, that we firmly believe, Jabon and I, that we can win new people into the sport. The sport still can win new fans, and any view to the contrary is, in our view, incorrect. Would you agree with us on that point?
Oh, absolutely. And I guess there's massive challenges for any sport, any code of racing, in trying to grab people's attention and hang on to it. There is so much for people, whether they be young, middle-aged, old, to do. And most of it now is as easy to do as ever. You can sit at home and watch sport, or you can sit at home and watch racing. You can play computer games. You really don't have to leave the comfort of your own home. So it's one thing to have people enjoy watching our sport and engaging from a wagering perspective, but that's never enough, is it? You need people to be invested in one way or another. And I've had this discussion many times with people, particularly when Albion Park was coming up for debate, and, moving away from Albion Park, and, it's right in a really prime position. But the fact of the matter is, I think you can't expect people to be at the track 365 days a year. You've got to really tap into those nights and put all of your effort and all of your gusto into it, and give it all you've got, and hope that the people that attend stick around. And I've got a few people who I'm friends with who aren't in the industry, who I've been getting to come along to the track a little more often in recent times. And one of my girlfriends came on Saturday night, actually, and she had the best time. She got in a winning photo. She got to see Leap to Fame. She enjoyed probably more competitive food and beverage prices than she would have got if she'd gone into the valley. But that's all easy to say, but you've got to get people there. So when we have a horse like Leap to Fame, we've got to use that draw card. When we have a big race like the Inter-Dominion last year, you've got to use that. And don't expect people to come back just next week. Hope that they come back at the carnival next year, and maybe then they want to buy into a horse. And there's so many different touch points that people can be involved in harness racing. I don't think we can just rely on one as being a success.
I think that that link to the Spring Carnival and the Thoroughbred, try and win over your fans there. I'm going to ask you, we want some winners in a moment. I'm going to ask you a hard question that might not have the best answer. Brittany Tiberius. You spoke about the Valley. If you were to wander around the Valley and talk to 18 to 30-year-olds, which I used to be in the late 70s, how many of them would have name recognition of Leap to Fame?
Yeah, very few. And I'll take it a step further. I'll take it a step further. I was recently in North America for work and was up there for a week or so around the Canada area. And I'm sure Pat from Winback won't mind me saying this, but Winback Farms stand Bettor's Delight, or have him there in the flesh. And he was introducing us to all the stallions, and we saw Bettor's Delight and we thought, wow, that's Bettor's Delight. That's so cool to see him in the flesh, What do you think of Leap to Fame? Probably his best son that we've ever seen in the Southern Hemisphere. And he hadn't heard of Leap to Fame. And I thought to myself,
that's incredible.
That hurts.
Wow.
And that means I'm not doing my job well enough of telling people his story, you know what I mean? So it's not just...
You are, Brittany, I'm telling you are. But it is so hard.
It's competitive.
Like when you love the sport the way we do, it feels It feels crazy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It also feels crazy that you just said that he's the best son ever in Australasia. That's a big call, best son ever in Australasia. But it feels crazy that you don't expect everyone to know everything about harness racing, but you'd think a horse like Leap to Fame would.
And maybe when he's retired and people look back on his career, more people will know about Leap to Fame, which sounds crazy. You think about, you think about, like, for myself, Black's a Fake. You look back and think of what he did. And I was talking to someone the other day about how he sat 3 wide the last lap at Menangle in one of his Interdominions, and horses can't pull out before the cages at Menangle now and be in the finish. Like, you sometimes looking back on a horse, you think more fondly of them than when they're here in the flesh. But the good thing about Leap to Fame is, yes, he's a stallion, but I don't think he's going anywhere just yet. And sometimes good things take time, and momentum takes time to build. And I think the momentum is starting to build with this horse. So I'm hoping, like last Saturday night, he got an applause as he came back to scale. And this was in, a $30,000 race on a Saturday night that he probably didn't even need to go around in, but he was there and there was a decent crowd there. He got a round of applause as he came back to scale. He got a round of applause as he came back into sort of the winner's circle area, and every person there had their phone out taking a photo of Leap to Fame. Like, I don't think I've really seen that of another horse of my time covering the sport. So that's a pretty good start. And then that maybe doubles this week and then doubles again next week. Well, all of a sudden you only need 10 or 12 of those people to want to buy into a horse, and then the floodgates open. That's what I'm hoping anyway.
It's so well said, Britt. It's a bloody good segue too into this Saturday night. I mean, we might these next couple of weeks might just be so important for the sport, and that's a lot of weight for one horse to carry. But what we saw last week with Leap to Fame, that was just sensational. Goes in now into the Garrard Sunshine Sprint this weekend. So as we switch our attention to Saturday night's big races, you're going to get a pretty short quote, I would imagine, for Leap to Fame. But what did you make of that run last week? And what are your feelings going into this week, Britt?
There'll be multiple, I would imagine.
No, he was amazing last week. I think, and I said to Grant Dixon after the line, I said, is he getting better? Like, is that possible? Is he as good now as he's ever been? And he said, yeah, I think so. Like, he was just unbelievable. And it wasn't the time, it wasn't the winning margin. It was just the way that he did it. Like, he just never let him go. And he was just quite breathtaking. And I think that resonates with non-racing people. You can not really know the times. You can see a big winning margin without really knowing what he's beating. But you watch an athlete just doing something without raising a sweat and you think, oh, that's pretty impressive. Like, and that's what he was the other week. So, yeah, he should be winning the Sunshine Sprint, and then I think he'll be winning the Black for Fake as well. You'd love to see, for the sake of the race more so than anything, a bit of an arm wrestle. But I think in Leap to Fame's case, maybe just the dominance of him in some of the races in recent times has been just as exciting as a really, great stretch battle between two. So I'm with him on top. He's, I think, $1.30 with Tab at the moment. If I'm looking at a horse at a decent place price, maybe I thought Turn It Up could maybe run into third at something. I have him mapped 4 fence, and what Grant Dixon learnt from the Patrons Purse defeat was that he has the strongest horse and the fastest horse over a long period of time, but maybe other horses are a little bit quicker for 200 or 300 metres. So I think he's just going to run this race like it's a staying test and take the absolute sprint out of all of the sprinters, and that means nobody's making any ground off the pegs, and I think Turn It Up will be 4 fence and can sneak into third.
Can I ask you both a question, a very hard... Geez, I'm brutal. A brutal question that I'm not going to answer myself. Coach, both of you can back out if you want to.
Right.
The only thing for Leap to Fame, the only thing I reckon he needs is a rivalry. Who is the second best pacer in Australasia? Coach?
I don't know on the spot. I'd want Britt to go first to put the pressure on Britt.
I would imagine I want Britt to go first.
I think it has to be Swayze at this point in time. He did win a New Zealand Cup like he did late last year, which makes it cooler because they're brothers, and that's so odd and rare. And it allows, it's such a cool marketing tool as well. Swayze's the older brother. And And he was still great last week. Like, he burnt like he's never burnt off the arm early on. And he probably, and I'd have to go back and look at his own individual time, but he probably broke the track record too. He just was beaten. So I think he's still the second best horse. And, you know, the Kiwis, I'm not sure what we really learned from that carnival over there. I think there's a really good crop of 4-year-old and up-and-coming horses, but then they keep taking turns on who's the best as well. So I'd have to say they're the two at the top of the tree. And I guess the fact that Swayze's beaten Leap to Fame, not many horses have done that either. So, and people will say, you know, the flat tyre and all of this, but the fact of the matter is that he still beat him. So, I'm Cody, I think Swayze is the second best.
Look, and I'd say it's pretty hard to argue with that based on everything that you've just explained, based on what we've seen with Swayze. I just think Leap to Fame is such a special horse, and last week really started to. I mean, I've always said Leap to Fame's brilliant, but just watching Grant last week, I made the point that, and Britt, you said he didn't let the horse go, but how much was still there as he just runs to the top? It was almost like Grant didn't realise. Hang on, what am I doing? I'm just getting pulled to the front here. I'm holding on. Has this horse got even more gears? What's going on? And so I don't know. I think there could be some. J-Bob, what about you? Have you got some others you'd want to toss into the mix there? Or?
No, not. Look, I think he's miles, but
I think he's just so daylight.
Talking up the sport, you would love Lochinvar Art or something like that to be around.
You would.
King of Swing would have been great.
Catch a Wave maybe over a mile, but we know that he's not as effective over a longer trip. But Leap to Fame is not only is he this amazing athlete, but he's a throwback to try and bring people who've fallen out of love with harness racing as well, I reckon, Brittany, because he's a warrior beast monster, which people loved harness racing. The people who favoured harness racing over thoroughbred racing maybe is, you know, they were the, you know, elite class, the bougie, God bless. But and the paces were the brutal monsters, and he's a brutal monster. But I would love to see him in a situation again where he had to absolutely throw the kitchen sink at another brutal champion to beat him. Yeah, but he's a freak megastar. It'll just be hard for us to measure him down the track because I just think he's gonna keep killing everything that's around at the moment, guys.
We'll have to see exactly how it all plays out. Before time gets the better of us, Britt, we better have a quick look at some of the other races on Saturday night. Want to talk about Ladies in Red, the great mare going around in the Golden Girl. She's come up with barrier 2, but she bumps into Artie's Express, drawn barrier 7. What's your take on this race?
Yeah, I'm with Ladies in Red in the Golden Girl. I feel like with Ladies in Red, there's this thought process that she doesn't have that much gate speed. And I think a lot of people have thought that for a little while. But when I was looking at the QE2 mile back in May when it was, I went back and watched her effort in the Rising Sun when she won it 2 years ago. And she left the gate really, really well on that occasion. I think that there's gate speed there if they need it, and they'll be using it on Saturday night. And I don't know why her winning last week, but not by a massive margin, people think that she's not quite as good as what she was, but she still got home in sub 27. So, yeah, I think that she's going to be really, really hard to beat. Have a healthy respect for Artie's Express, and I didn't think Artie's Express could beat Ladies in Red in the QE2 mile either. So maybe my memory's a little short. Ludicrous, I've loved this chatter around her this week and holding the lead. You don't get barrier 1 in a Group 1 very often, but under all of those circumstances, I think Ladies in Red still holds the whip hand a little bit, because if Ludicrous does hold the lead, I can't see Artie's Express getting to the breeze position, and if Ludicrous isn't in front, well, I think Ladies in Red's in front, so she's my on top tip.
I reckon Ladies in Red actually is a better horse outside the leader.
Yeah, you made that point last week, J-Bon.
And going back to the previous discussion, she's probably the second best. It's just unfortunate that the boys and girls don't race against her.
But she did. She beat Leap to Fame too in the Rising Sun that year. You know, he was only a 3-year-old. And I think Leap to Fame's the same. He's better sitting outside the leader as well. These great horses, they're pretty smart, aren't they? I know they love a target. So no, I think she's going to be really, really hard to beat. And I'd be interested what happens after Saturday night, win, lose or draw. So that's a whole nother story in itself.
Britt, wanted to ask you before we let you go, there's a horse called Majestic Harry, of course, running on Saturday night in the Group 3 Trotter Sprint, and you'll be driving Majestic Harry, so that must be a thrill. How does that work this weekend? Are you on the coverage? Are you driving the coverage and then ducking off? Because I know we used to do that back in the day, and you'd go drive the horse and come back. Is that how it's going to work?
Yep. So that will be how Saturday night plays out. And the race schedulers, I should say, have really helped me out putting it a little later on in the card so I can get through the majority of my duties and then jump aboard Harry. But no, I'm so lucky that I'm allowed to do that, because it could have been quite easy for my bosses to say, no way, that's not your job. But I think everybody knows how much this horse means to me. So it's so cool to be able to drive him. And that's a very strong race. Take out Just Believe and, call me the Breeze RC Phoenix. Yes, they're not there. But in terms of depth and evenness of field, that's a cracker. So I'm just happy that he's in the race, to be honest. We've got a good draw and I'm really happy with him. He went super last week. So, I'm just excited to be a part of it. It's pretty cool to have a horse in the Constellations Carnival.
She's a powerful woman. She could have had the race scheduled for an hour after the last.
I suspect so, but it is so cool. It's again so cool. You don't get it in many other sports where you'd have the host actually go and take part in the action. This is something, J-Bon, you and I have spoken about before. That's one of harness racing.
So I tried to get a drive in the third once and they said no, but I'm not British.
As we said earlier, never say never about that sort of jazz. Brittany, you're an absolute star. Thanks so much for coming onto the Tongue Tie Off podcast on Pace Setters. We've enjoyed having you.
Thanks, guys. No, it's been good fun. And as I mentioned earlier, I could talk about harness racing all day. So anytime when you've got through your other guests, long list I'm sure that you have organised, I'll happily jump on again.
We'd love to have you back.
Take it over to the hairdresser for me as well.
I will do.
And good luck on Saturday night. Make sure you tune into Sky to check out all the coverage from the Constellations and to see Britt go around in the Group 3 as well. So good luck, Britt.
Thanks, guys.